All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and it's my summer break where I take a week off of work to come home and do more work. So starting off, of course, is taking care of all of the cars. We've got oil changes all around. Did my wife's car, just wrapped up the 440, and now we are doing the X7 next. And this is actually going to be my first oil change in this car since we bought it. So of course I want to document and show you guys how to do an oil change in an X7. It's going to be the same process for any 2019 or newer X5, X6, or X7. But also the good news is with all my cars, I do all the oil changes at the same time because I'm able to send my oil back to FCP Euro and use their warranty program to basically get my oil changes for free. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that as well so that you're able to do all of your future oil changes pretty much zero cost other than the cost of shipping. So let's go ahead and show you how it's done. Hopefully you guys find this video useful. Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future. Now to start off, we're going to want to jack the car up in the air, obviously, and with the air suspension, your first step is to disable the automatic leveling. So when you go into the car, you have the little setting where you adjust your ride height, and you're basically going to hold that button up or down for 7 seconds and then release it, and the little green line should go away. Now the indicator does not disappear on its own, so if you just keep holding it, it won't automatically go away at 7 seconds. So you need to count to 7 and then let it go in order for you to disable your air suspension. Then once you've done that, it's time to jack up the car. There is a central jacking point right at the front that's really convenient, so you can jack it up in the air and put it on jack stands like I did. You might hear a lot of people say you can't do this by just jacking up the front end. And yes, technically the oil pan is flat and the drain plug points straight down. So to get the maximum absolute amount of oil out of there, you can jack up the rear as well and get the car level. But you never actually get all the oil out. It's really negligible. And I just jack it up high enough to get under the car so you can see it's still almost level with this monster truck height that the X7 comes with. So this is how I do it. If you want, you can also jack up the rear and put all 4 corners on jack stands. And then we're going to get under the car and start draining the oil. Make sure, of course, you have your oil change kit. So I've got 10 liters of oil, Liquimoly 0W30. You only need 6.5 liters, but I like to keep these extra big bottles for the warranty return process. I'll show that. We've got a MAN oil filter I've used on all of my cars and had really good luck in the past. So big fan of this one. I've got my Blackstone kit so I can send this out for oil analysis, especially again, since this car is new and this is the first oil change I've done. I want to get a good feel for, the health of the engine and making sure that the oil is good. And then we've also got our catch pan. Again, this is really critical because we're going to be taking the oil, pouring it back into our container so that we can ship it back to FCP Euro. Now, just disclaimer, technically I can't do it this time because this is my first oil change, but after I've used this oil, at my next service when I drain it, I'll be able to pour it back in and ship it to them. So I'll show you guys how to do it on your future oil changes. Well, I guess for some reason this didn't record. I thought I was recording this whole time. So here you go. We'll pretend that I'm doing this for the first time. But there is an access panel right here and the drain bolt is straight up in there. So you're going to use a 17mm socket to back it out. This is what the bolt looks like. So it's just up here plugging this hole. Once you get it off, loosen it and all the oil will drain out. Now keep in mind this hole is actually supposed to be covered, but for some reason BMW only put the cover on the V8 cars. So since this was a 40i, the 6-cylinder, it doesn't have it. But I did look it up and found the part number for it. And so I'm going to buy it and just put it on here to address my OCD where it's bugging me that there's just a big hole under here. So if you want to know the part number for that, I'll put it in the video description and you can, just order that from your local dealership or whatever and cover that up. So I'll be back under here in a week when that comes in the mail. But in the meantime, we're just gonna let the oil drain, and then we've got a little bit more work to do on top while this is emptying out. So now we're ready to go ahead and swap out the oil filter. First step is just to remove this engine cover, and it just pulls straight up. This car is really big, so you might need a step stool to get over the fenders and access some of these. Need a little more leverage. There we go. But it should just pull straight up at all four corners, and then gently slide it out. Now the oil filter itself is pretty hidden, but it's not that hard to access. So you can see this is the oil filter right here. And on top of that is a 32 millimeter bolt. Basically, we're going to use a 32 millimeter socket to remove that. And to access it, I like to just use a long extension with a little swivel at the end. And then we should be able to pull that out without removing any trim or bracing or anything. So let's see if we can get it. Now I'm going to remove this wire harness. Right here it has like 2 tabs. So you basically just press the tab down like this, and then it allows you to pull it off of the little holder. I'll move that out of the way. And then we should be able to access this bad boy. It's hard to show while I'm getting to it, but hopefully you get the idea. So I'll put my swivel right here. Actually, this might be longer than I need it to be. Now we're also going to get a couple towels and put it under here just to make sure we don't spill a bunch of oil. So if you've got a microfiber or something, that's even better. There we go. All right. And with the towel, we'll try to take all this off. There we go, and that's the oil filter. So it should come out all as one little sub-assembly with the cap that's still attached. So now we're ready to swap the oil filter, and I think the cool thing about BMW, I don't see a lot of other people doing this, but the filter, of course, comes in, but it also comes with all the gaskets and stuff that you need. So we're gonna go ahead and take this off of, So we're just gonna take this off of the old one, and then we need to go ahead and prepare the new one for install. So we'll put a little bit of oil on the gaskets from your new oil. So I'm sticking my finger in here, and then we're just gonna wipe it around the little gaskets. So I'll do that on the outside here and on the inside here, and that makes sure it has everything. And then we're just gonna slide it on to the oil cap itself. So push that on, and it just snaps into place. Then there is an O-ring around this that we're going to hopefully take off. There we go. So this can just slide off. And then in the oil filter kit, we got a new oil ring. Now I try to be careful with opening this packaging because again, we're gonna be sending this back to FCP Euro. So I just make a small hole and slide this out. Put it onto our oil filter cap. And then again, we're gonna put some oil on our finger and run it around here so that this slides back into place nice and smoothly. And then save this piece. This is the crush washer for your drain plug underneath the car. So we'll come back and use this after. And now we're gonna go ahead and slide the oil filter back down in here. It should kind of push on a little bit and make sure it's centered. And I like to just start it with my hands to make sure that it's flat and not cross-threaded or anything. And then you'll get the wrench back on here. But again, it's a tight space, kind of hard to see, but in the real world, not actually that hard to access. So let's go ahead and tighten this down. And then don't forget to put the wire harness back onto these little clips and make sure that's secure. Now next, we're gonna have to fill the oil, but first, of course, underneath the car, we want to replace the drain plug. So grab this crush washer. We're gonna replace the one on the oil drain bolt and then install that on the oil pan. All right, so now we've got our oil drain bolt. We'll take the old crush washer off and put the new crush washer on. And then we'll hand thread it back onto the oil pan. And then use your socket wrench to go ahead and tighten it down. Again, 17 millimeters. And all the torque specs and stuff I'll have in the video description. Now the last step is to actually add oil. So go ahead and wipe this all off. Make sure, you know, there's not dirt or anything that's gonna fall in. And then we'll take the oil cap off. And then you're going to add 6.5 liters of oil. Again, I use this Liqui-Moly 0W30 BFE. It meets the BMW LL01 FE spec. Use whatever is the correct spec for your region. It does depend on the engine and stuff like that, but this is what's recommended over here. So I also like this because it comes in 5-liter bottles, so I don't have to, you know, calculate what liters to quarts would be. We're just going to do 6.5 liters like it's supposed to take. Liqui-Moly also has these spouts on their bottle, so it makes it really easy, or at least easier, to pour oil into here without making too much of a mess. So let's see what we can do. There we go. And it's basically going to take this whole 5-liter bottle and then 1.5 liters of the other bottle I got. And then once it's all done, you take your cap, put that back on, snap it in place, and then we will grab our engine cover, get this oriented. You can kind of just line up the hole with the oil cap here, and then push it down on each of the corners. And we're good to go. And also, of course, this is a good time to check your coolant levels, you know, your fluid levels and everything. Make sure that's all topped off so you can make sure your car has the least chance of issues until your next oil change. So now we're gonna go ahead and reset the oil service light. So the first thing we need to do is come over here and press the start stop button 3 times quickly. And then you'll see up here it says diagnostic mode active. So now what we're going to do is press the BC button, hold that for about 15 seconds, and it should come up with the diagnostic menu. And then once that comes up, you will see engine oil reset possible. So what we're going to do is, again, you might have to press the BC button to hide that hood open menu, but we're going to hold the BC button until it says that it's reset. And then again, long press BC to reset it. Probably would help to just close the hood so that message stops popping up and hiding the menu. And so now you can see reset successful. Again, probably makes more sense just to close the hood because that hood open button is going to keep popping up. And then once you're done, we're going to turn the suspension back on. So again, just long press this button up or down for 7 seconds. and release, and your little level indicator should come back. So now we've got everything reset, and you can see we've got 40,000 miles to the next vehicle check. Engine oil, 10,000 miles, or June of 2026. So yeah, do your oil changes as needed. Just keep in mind this number does adjust based on how you drive. So sometimes the number goes down, sometimes it goes up, depending on how hard you drive and things like that. There's an actual sensor on the car that tries to measure the engine oil quality, and then it estimates how long you need before your next oil change. But that's pretty much how it works. Now, once you've changed your oil, of course, you need to check your oil level. And a lot of people are concerned about that in these cars because they don't have an actual physical dipstick. And yes, you do need to drive the car for about 15 minutes to warm it up enough to measure the oil level electronically. But the good news is there is a safety. As soon as you open up the oil level reading indicator on iDrive, it shows you whether the oil level is at least above the minimum value. So there is a dummy sensor that works as soon as you turn on the car, and that'll make sure at least it's not too low. Then once you've driven the car again for about 15 minutes or so, gotten the oil up to temperature, you can do the actual electronic oil level measurement. Now at this point, the oil level is reading, so basically it's going to rev up the engine slightly. I think it's around 1200 RPM, and it should hold it through the entire oil level reading process. A lot of people are also concerned about this because if you have oil pump issues, sometimes it makes the progress stop partway through. So thankfully on this car, I've been able to measure the oil level, but if you have a Gen 2 B58 and the oil level doesn't read all the way, it stops before it gets to 100%, then usually it's time to replace your oil pump in order to fix that issue. But we'll go ahead, let it run all the way up to 100%, and it'll give us an accurate oil level reading. So actually in this case, it looks like I underfilled it just slightly. Now keep in mind from min to max is 1 liter. So I'm gonna add about 1/4 of a liter, and that should help top it off. I might even put a 1/2 liter just to go a little bit over the max level. But this is not the difference between 0 and 6.5 liters. So depending on how full this is, if it's halfway, you need about a 1/2 liter. 1/4 of the way, you'd need about 3/4 of a liter in order to top this off. So now we're going to get ready to return all of the oil and filter stuff that we got. So first thing is, like I said, you're going to save your crush washer and your gaskets because we're going to put it back in this packaging. The only real requirement from FCP is that everything's in the original packaging. So we put that back in here, shove that into the box, and then you've also got your oil filter, but this is going to continue dripping. And so just to make sure you don't have issues with shipping, I like to put it in a Ziploc bag. So this makes it less of a mess for you, less of a mess for them. I think they probably appreciate it, but yeah, so go ahead, seal off the Ziploc bag, get all the air out of it that you can, and then you're going to fold that over and again shove it into the box and close this up. And now we are going to reclaim the oil. So take the same container that you poured out of, open this up, and then we're going to put a funnel on here just to avoid how much of a mess we make. And then we're going to pour it out of our drain pan into the oil container. Now just make sure you're watching the level on the side or keeping an eye on how full it is so you don't overfill it. And remember, this one only will hold 5 liters. So after you do this, you'll still need to put an extra 1.5 liters in another drain pan or in another oil jug. But that should pretty much cover it. So once you've got that, we'll put the cap back on. And what I like to do with this, to again avoid issues making a mess with shipping and stuff, is I just put this in a trash bag. So I just grab a big garbage bag, put this in here, cinch it, and again, get all the air out. And it adds a little bit of, you know, safety around it when we do ship it back. But yeah, pretty much I just ship it back like this. So yeah, after that, it's time to buy your next oil change kit. So go ahead back to FCP Euro. I buy another 10 liters of oil and another oil filter. And then once you've received those, you'll take the oil that you have now and send that back for a refund. So that way all of your future oil changes are basically for free, minus the cost of shipping. Depending on where you live, it might be more or less expensive, but shipping it back in the actual FCP Euro packaging that they send you your oil in is usually pretty cheap, and you still get a very nice significant discount off of your future oil changes. And of course, if you're local to them, you can probably just bring it in and drop it off yourself. So hopefully this helps you guys out. Just keep up on your oil changes. Of course, these B58 sometimes do like to drink oil, so check your oil level from time to time to make sure it's topped off. But otherwise, I think that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.